I when I got pregnant with my first, I really enjoyed it. I just loved being pregnant. I felt really healthy being pregnant, and I felt like I was kind of like my best self when I was pregnant with my first son. So, but I had no idea, if that was like going to be my norm or what my next might be like if it should happen. So I just kind of had the thought in my mind after I delivered my first. It was kind of in the back of my mind that I really loved the pregnancy part. So then a couple years later, we had our daughter. And then after that, we decided that this was something we wanted to explore together. So my husband reached out to someone that he knew that had done it before. And after talking to her, it kind of was more settled in my mind that it was something I wanted to pursue. And then we had a little surprise third. So we kind of put a pause on the whole process and then picked back up after I delivered my third. And yeah, I loved being pregnant all 3 times. So I felt called to do it again for somebody else. But I could hear both of my IPs, like their response. I could hear like some crying and some like laughter, and I could hear them like hugging, and I could just hear their joy. And that, I don't think I will ever forget, just laying there and hearing those sounds and hearing baby girl cry and just knowing that their family had just begun together. So that will always like stand out of my mind as my favorite memory. Probably the beginning. So after once we had like cleared all the steps and I started my medication calendar, and we were like prepping for the first transfer. And it just never occurred to me that it wasn't going to work, which was probably a very unrealistic expectation that I had. But I had felt so called to do it for so long, and I knew my IPs had wanted this for so long, and I just felt like, of course it's going to work. And it didn't work the first time. And then it didn't work the second time. And I know that was hard for them. And I think I took it hard too, because I just kind of felt like, why am I putting them through this too? There's so many emotions involved. And I felt a lot of guilt about that. And so that was really hard for me to navigate in the beginning, because I just wasn't expecting it. I thought it felt pretty easy on my end. I remember reading their profile that had been sent. And I remember when I saw their pictures at the end of the profile, I remember kind of feeling like, I feel like we could get along, just based on, they were like in a coffee shop in both of their pictures. And it just felt like I could sit down and have coffee with them, and that felt nice. And then, so when we met online for the first time and talked online for the first time, it was just a natural conversation. And I do remember there was a question about like kind of how we felt about social media, or like how we both wanted to treat the journey through social media. And I was like, well, this is weird, but I know I'm in my 30s, but I do not have any social media accounts at all. And they were like, we don't either. We're probably the only ones in our 30s that aren't on social media. So we just kind of like clicked after that, and it just felt really natural. They were involved. They were very involved. We were messaging often. They were in a different time zone. And so I think we were like 15 hours apart for the most part, unless they were traveling into the States. So I know it was hard for them. Like when I had appointments, we would try to video chat, but timing was hard. So then it was always either like a belated update on what had happened. But we messaged all the time. And they ended up sending like a little, like a womb speaker to use. And I thought that was really cool. They recorded some stories in their language and in English. And so I would just lay there and play stories for baby girl. And I thought I felt connected to them through that. And I think she did too. The pregnancy was easy. It was enjoyable. She was a teeny little thing when she came out, and my children were all very big. My last one was 10 pounds. So when I was carrying her, it kind of just felt, it was not like inconvenient at all after my own. So it was a pretty easy pregnancy. Yeah, I talked to my mom the most about it. I talked to my parents a lot about it because they, wanted to be part of it too and hear all the updates too. And my husband and I talked to our kids a lot about it from the very beginning. And I think with stranger, I don't actually remember, I remember getting a lot of comments about like, oh, you're going for another round or something, because I already have I had a gaggle of 3 kids with me. And then, so I did get some comments when we were out and about. Yeah, I don't remember it being, usually my kids would answer the question and we would just move on. We kind of just talked to them about it the entire process, so it wasn't a big deal. Actually, it was recommended to me during, in the early part of the process through the agency, a book about a kangaroo family, and the pouch wasn't working, and so the one kangaroo whose pouch was working was going to help carry. So we read that book a lot at the beginning, and then we also found kind of a scrapbook version of a story that had space for pictures and drawings. And so my kids kind of drew a lot during their 5 and 3 and 2. So they kind of had different levels of talking about it, but they did draw a lot of pictures, and we would talk about what do you think she's going to look like, and how do you think her parents are going to feel. And I hung up a picture of my IPs on the fridge, so every time I brought home a picture of baby, we could remind the family how happy her parents are going to be. They were very sweet with it. They always liked to touch my belly. Every time I was pregnant, they always touched my belly. And so they would talk to her and feel her moving and stuff. And I think they got really into it. And my son actually got very sad that he wouldn't be able to be a surrogate. He said at the end, I wish I could be a surrogate like you, Mom. And I was like, I do too, buddy. I don't know why it is the way it is, but I wish you could too. I think they enjoyed being part of it too. The delivery was pretty, I don't want to say easy. It was still a toll on, my body, but there were no complications. And it ended up being scheduled since I had 2 C-sections previously, and my doctor wanted to kind of err on the side of caution. So it was scheduled for a week before the due date, and it was a pretty easy morning. And I do remember the thing that I think we were all most nervous about was how my IPs would both be able to be in the room with me, because I had said that if it comes down to it, I would rather one or both of them be with me over my husband. And so we were all kind of nervous because my OB had said it would kind of be a game time decision based on the rest of the team in the room that day. So I think I was very nervous about that. I know they were, but I do remember right before they took me back to prep me, the anesthesiologist for that morning came in just to talk to me, and I explained how nervous we were, and he said, let's just play a joke to break the ice. Why don't we tell them they have to play rock, paper, scissors to decide who gets to come in? And then he said, they both get to, but let's just tell them they have to. And so when my IPs came in, and he kind of put on this stern face, and it was a really funny way to start the morning, because I know we were all feeling a lot of things. The delivery was great. And I think those few days in the hospital right after were also some of my favorite moments with my intended parents, because I hadn't met them in person at the same time. My intended mother was with me for one of the transfers, but we had not all been in the same room together up until then. So it was just those days that we were kind of back and forth in and out of each other's rooms and bringing baby back and forth and at weird hours in the day. Like, it was just like some really special postpartum moments that I will remember. I just felt joy. I felt pure joy. I felt relief because she was healthy, and I was healthy, and everything went fine. And so I felt a lot of relief. And I felt excited for them because I could see, and they kind of talked to my husband and I about this as well, how, they were nervous about just even like holding her and like, changing her diaper. And I remember that. It seems far away to me now, but I completely remember those feelings. And so I just felt excited for them that once they actually had her in their arms, that it would just happen, because it just does. And so yeah, I felt just like excited for them to like start the journey with her. Snacks. I remember wishing I had packed snacks, because it didn't occur to me that, when I was there with my own biological children, my husband was also just with me all day and all night. And since I wasn't like having to care for a baby and like get up and down and like have someone bring baby to me, like I didn't have to kind of like navigate all the caretaking stuff in my postpartum days this time. So he didn't stay as much, which meant that I didn't have like as much access to food. So I remember once I like had my first walk or whatever, and I could go to the nourishment room on my own, then I was like relieved. But at first I remember like, well, who's gonna like get me snacks and bring me food at 2 a.m.? I'm nursing right now. I'm so hungry. Yes, my husband did meet her right away. He was there right after we got back to our rooms, and they had their precious like first hours with baby. We did like a first feeding, and all 4 of us were in the room together for that. And so that was the first time that both of us had like held her and met her. And so he met her in the hospital. And my kids met her maybe like, I think it was the day that I got home, that I had been discharged from the hospital, because my IPs were bringing her over to feed every few hours and also pick up breast milk as well while we were all still local. And so my kids met her the first time that she came over for that. And that was really great. They, we kind of like jointly held her together, each one of them. And they practiced like saying her names. I'm hoping it was an impactful thing for them too. They send me monthly pictures, and I think actually the new one's going to be coming up in like a week. So they've been sending, we kept up quite a bit like in the initial days, just like logistically about bringing her over to nurse and things like that. And then once they kind of traveled back like in different legs of the journey. And so they were keeping me updated on like, we made it here and now we made it here. And I was asking how she did on the flight. And so we kept a lot in touch as we were traveling in the initial months after delivery. And then since then, they've been sending me a picture every month to see how she's growing. Peace of mind. I felt like there were a lot of resources, if needed, that there was like always someone I could go to about any questions, because I had no idea how it was all actually going to work as it was happening. But I felt like I had peace of mind because I knew that the communication was going to be clear. I kind of knew. I'm trying to think, like every step of the way, I felt like I knew the expectations like on my end. And then, yeah, it was just nice to know that there were resources if anything came up or if I was confused, that I could reach out and find answers. Something like along the lines of like giving yourself grace, because at least for me, I felt like since I was choosing to do this, that I guess I felt more like pressure about the way it was all happening. And you know, if something were to not go the way that I expected or the way my IPs expected, I was kind of feeling the weight of that. And I wish I had just kind of given myself a little more understanding, because I know that my IPs were complete, like that was not coming from them. It was all things I was kind of feeling in my own heart. So I think just giving yourself grace and being kind to yourself, because yeah, choosing to do it is enough, and the way it all happens is not in anyone's control. So the fact that it happens is enough. And I wish I had just been kinder to myself throughout the journey. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I think that I do think that I had some like unrealistic expectations about the postpartum experience like months later, because I had in my mind, I was thinking, since I'm not caring for the newborn, that it's going to be like way easier to recover myself, since I'm not caring for another person at the same time. That always felt like me to be the hardest part about having my own children. And it was easier in a sense, like I was getting rest. So there was no sleep deprivation this time around, but my hormones were the same, and my, you know, physical, my soreness or my ability physically to do things was the same. So I think I didn't necessarily like keep in mind that a lot of it was actually going to be quite similar to my other postpartum experiences. So I wish I had kind of prepared myself more for that piece of it. But yeah, I loved it. I think it was a beautiful, I mean, I'm never going to forget so many moments during the journey. And I hope my kids don't either, because I think it was special to do it as a family.